Hello and welcome to my day 20 update. This is Emma Mental and this is my channel Health and Wellness with Emma Mental. And for those of you who've been following the journey, this is day 20 of a planned 21-day fast, and I've been sharing along the way and documenting physical changes, emotional, mental challenges and changes. And tomorrow is the day that the fast ends. Incredible really what the body can do, and I wanted to share in this update with you where I'm at on day 20, and mainly talk to you about some of the comments and questions that people have been sharing along the way, as well as sending me some private messages to ask me about or comment on some of the choices that I've made. So as you know, this is the first time that I've done such a long fast. My longest previous fasts have been 5 days and one of 6 days. To be honest, I'm not sure that females benefit as much as males. It's very individual how this process unfolds. I have been using, for those of you who've been listening to the updates, been using a continuous blood glucose monitor, looking at the patterns, looking at the changes, and that all has been really interesting. So the first question or comment that I want to reply to is about exercise or walking lowering blood glucose. So yes, that is a known fact. We know that if you wake up or during the day experience some kind of a spike, or if you continually struggle with elevated blood glucose levels, that exercise or walking can really help. Some of the experts have mentioned to walk after meals. That's not always a practical solution for everybody, but in the context of this early morning dawn phenomenon that has been talked about and that I've definitely been seeing in my practice and also with my own personal experience, the early morning exercise or walking definitely helps to bring that down. Some of the other things that will impact on blood glucose, and if you are specifically wanting to lower your average blood glucose or these spikes, these will be my suggestions if you're trying to do it naturally. The one thing is to have apple cider vinegar before meals. That has shown to have about a 30% reduction in post-meal glucose, which is a great benefit. So about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, raw, unfiltered, in room temperature or warm water as a tea before meals. It definitely helps with digestion as well. So that's a great fasting hack. That's something that I think can really impact positively on your blood glucose. I like to use berberine, an extract of berberine, for long-term support. Depending on where you're at with your insulin and your glucose, to use it 2 to 3 times a day, about a 5 milligram extract of the best quality berberine that you can find. So that's something that I've been using. I'm curious to know what my blood glucose and insulin would have been if I wasn't using it, because I've been using it for quite some time. Then of course you want to choose a lower carb diet most of the time. You want to get away from the potatoes, the pasta, the bread, and the sugary foods and sugary drinks. So sometimes it's a simple solution to just start to avoid and eliminate those kind of foods from your diet, especially if you're struggling with or without medication to get that down. There are many of my videos that will mention the guidelines, so you can just go back into the library or the playlists to see the kinds of foods and meals that I suggest. And it is also something that I teach in my online fasting courses, how to come out of that predominant carb or glucose as fuel kind of diet and into something where you are including very slow releasing carb foods like sweet potato or berries, and then also to start adopting a lower carb form of diet. On that note, I want to really mention that this is not a one size fits all. A 3-week fast or even a 5-day fast is not something that I would rush into unsupervised or without really knowing your body, having practiced some elimination diet of the sugary foods, etc. So the online fasting courses is definitely 6 to 8 weeks of getting to know and understand the various ways in which you can make these changes. On that same note, also to mention that for women who still have cycles and periods, it would look very different compared to somebody like me, postmenopausal with no cycle. There are definitely times in the month where women would benefit from adding some carbohydrate. I wouldn't do it as potatoes and pasta and sugary foods and biscuits, but I would certainly do it with the sort of slow releasing carb foods like sweet potato and some fruit. So there are different guidelines depending on where you're at. For men, they do so well on a ketogenic kind of diet, and they generally make better progress than women. Of course, if you are morbidly obese and you have very irregular cycles, then just getting into a low carb form of diet initially to stabilize blood sugar is a good way. Better protein, higher protein intake, about 90 grams to 100 grams a day from eggs and animal sources, preferably free range, no hormone. And then to get into fasting from that can actually then start to normalize the cycles. For those of you who've been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, irregular cycles, and struggling to lose weight because you are insulin resistant, you want to really address that as a priority. So depending on the individual, I will make different recommendations to see what is the best way to get started. So that's the comment on exercise and lowering blood glucose and some of the ways in which we can address that. Of course, I want to look at blood tests like your fasting insulin. That's an important number to have, as well as your 3-month average blood glucose, HbA1c. We don't just test that for diabetics. We want to test that as a precaution, as a preventative measure to start noticing changes before it becomes a real problem. We want to identify as these numbers start to look less than optimal. The second comment and question that I want to talk about today, and this was a private message. Thank you for those of you who've been commenting and asking questions. I sort of do this. I've not really known from the end of week 1 how this is going to unfold, and I am trying to make intuitive and guided changes as I'm adding in certain foods. So in the 1 week I was having about 2 tablespoons of avo. That was just a form of fat, which according to Dr. Mindy Peltz doesn't break a fast, but it felt good to have something, even though it was so little. It wasn't because I was hungry or feeling unwell. We've got to think of the digestive tract after such a long time of not having really solid food. I mean, avocado and some nut butter, a little bit of peanut butter was the only solid food that I've been eating. So the digestive tract can become quite sensitive to the reintroduction of solid food, and one's got to do that gradually, slowly and cautiously. Even for people who do a 48 or a 72-hour fast, when we get there, I get them to start with the bone broth, then very gradually introduce perhaps some well-cooked sweet potato or pumpkin or butternut, and then as that goes along and it feels well and good, some avo, some nut butter, and then maybe some well-cooked chicken. Some people also like to add the sauerkraut. So a very gradual introduction, but over 3 weeks, of course, I've been wanting to add something just so that tomorrow I don't have to have such a long extended reintroduction of food. So the last few days has been bone broth that I cooked 2 weeks ago. I made the bone broth with marrow bones. Somebody asked if I ate the marrow. I didn't eat the marrow at all. I used the bone broth for the marrow bones to make my bone broth. So there was some onion in there, which I haven't eaten, some fresh herbs, some parsley, some thyme, some rosemary, some bay leaves. So a very tasty bone broth that I seasoned well with salt, sort of simple seasoning, but nothing solid. Even so, some of the bits that have come off the marrow bone I haven't eaten. The next bone broth I'm going to make, just as support, will be made with chicken backs, and I do it very simply: onion, garlic, and then some seasoning. So the cream I've been having, I always fast having cream in my coffee. It doesn't impact on my blood glucose. It's a little bit of cream, dairy cream, yes. Milk would be not ideal to have in coffee or tea. And I've been having 2 coffees a day. The one coffee after exercise, or the first coffee I have in the day, is a caffeinated ground coffee. And my second cup, which was later around midday or 2 p.m., is a decaf coffee. It's a little bit of cream. I would say maximum 2 tablespoons of cream a day. Coffee, the caffeine typically will spike blood sugar a little bit, and for some people that can actually break a fast. So I have been tracking that. I can see that it goes up, but I've also had a walk this morning and then it starts to come down again. But cream in coffee, according to Dave Asprey, does not break a fast, and that's been the one thing for me that has been I've kept that ritual, I've kept that routine. It's something I really enjoy. I have been cautious not to overdo it, and I think 1 caffeine and 1 decaf coffee a day, if it's good quality plunger or ground coffee, is absolutely fine. So that's from the cream point of view. The other comment was, where am I go from here, and almost in a question asking, why am I leaning towards a more carnivore type diet? A few reasons for that, and I'm here on day 20, so I haven't done it. I don't know really what's going to happen. I have a plan in my mind for how the next week or next month is going to go, but all of that will have to be done according to what happens to my weight, what happens to my blood glucose, and how I feel. So I am going to use fish tomorrow as my first protein, a solid food. I think it'll be easily digestible. The easiest vegetable that I feel would accompany the fish would probably be sweet potato. Well cooked, I'm not sure how. I'm going to have to see. Definitely not a salad. I think the rawness or the raw food like a salad will probably bloat me and probably feel a little bit harsh on the digestive tract. I'm planning to have quite a high protein diet for the next while. Probably quite a few eggs a day. There's one version of an egg fast, which I'm quite drawn to because it's simple and easy. The simplicity of this I find really easy to do. Very few dishes to wash. and not much planning to do at all. So I do have eggs in the fridge, and it might be after the fish, might just be eggs, 4 eggs at a time, twice a day, maybe. I'm going to try that. I also feel like doing a bit of carnivore for the protein reintroduction after 3 weeks of not eating protein at all. So I want to replenish that. I am a little bit concerned that one might lose muscle on such an extended fast, and that's why I've tried to keep active without exerting myself. I've continued to walk as often as I can. I've done some swimming, but that's not weight bearing. I've done a few little other movements like dancing and that type of movement, just to keep the body, into a movement. You can't lie on your bed when you're not eating for 3 weeks and when you're feeling energized. So movement has been to preserve muscle, but also to make sure that I continue to improve my glucose and insulin sensitivity. I feel drawn to a higher protein type diet because I think it'll also help me with the continued weight loss, which I'm hoping for. There's been a long stall, and that has been such a mind game for me. And I'm not going to go deeper into that now. For me, that's going to be a part of the process for the next few months. So just know that I have an idea, but I'm going to have to see how it goes, and I might have to adapt that. I'm going to continue to include regular fasts, a 24 or a 48 hour or a 36 hour, for as long as it takes. There might be times when I eat more high fat. I tolerate fat very well. It gives me a lot of energy. So if I use butter or ghee or MCT oil or coconut oil or olive oil in my food, I have got no digestive issue with that. So you're going to have to see where you are at if you're trying to do similar things. I also want to have some days when I'm not eating a lot of fat, but purely because I want to have this metabolic flexibility where it's not the same all the time. Although if I'm going to go onto eggs, it might be quite monotonous for a few days. But I will keep you posted, and this is just something that's going to unfold. The comments about animal protein versus plant-based protein, I'm not a plant-based fan at all. I would find it extremely difficult to have a ketogenic type diet that's not animal-based. So there are ways to do it. It takes careful planning. I'm not up for that. I'm not a fan of legumes at all. It used to be part of my diet a long time ago, but I'm just not that way inclined at all. So everybody is different. You might feel that high fat you can't digest. Then this way of life might be different for you. I'm committed to losing another 10 kilograms, hopefully by September. So I'm going to do everything in my power without any negative effects on my body to continue with the weight loss, to continue to be committed to making lifestyle changes, to rewire my thinking around sugar or comfort eating or numbing. So that's where I'm going to leave it for this recording. I'm going to do another recording which will be shorter just after this about the emotions. But it has been an incredible time for me. I've been surprised with my body. I've been really blown away with how well my body has handled this, and I know that I would do fine with an extended fast, or if there's ever a famine, I would do that. So this for me was more than just a physical reset. It was also a mental cleanse, an emotional cleanse. It was a form of Lent for me, of giving up something that is usually my comfort. And as you can imagine, around Easter with Easter eggs everywhere in the stores and hot cross buns. I haven't even thought of a hot cross bun. I've seen them around, but it certainly hasn't been a temptation. So I'm hoping that my body is really starting to embrace and lean into a healthier way of thinking that I can adopt long term. Thank you so much for watching. Please like my videos, please subscribe. If you hit the notification button, you'll be notified when I upload. And thank you for your comments and questions, and for those of you who've been supporting me for so long. Day 20, 1 day to go, 1 evening to go, and I'm really so pleased that I have got this far. It has made a big difference for me to be able to document this and share the progress with you. Thank you so much.